Hello students, I am Dr. Saliha Jamal, Faculty Department of Geography, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. Welcome back to the lecture series. So here we are dealing with the Earth sphere and today we have a topic to discuss here, that is about the lithosphere. So when we talk about the lithosphere, we know that it is the upper outer layer of the earth, and when we see our upper outer layer of the earth, it is somewhat solid in its state and we can say it is one of the strong layer of the earth. If we talk about its concept, the concept of lithosphere was first described by the English mathematician A.H. Love in 1911, and in his monograph, that is Some Problems of Geodynamics, the concept was just described and discussed in his monograph. But this concept was further proceeded by the American geologist named Joseph Barrell, who introduced the term lithosphere. So when it will be asked who introduced the term lithosphere, the answer will be the American geologist Joseph Barrell. So as we are dealing here with the lithosphere, the outermost layer of the earth's surface, that is the lithosphere, which is a solid, rocky and outer layer of the earth. The term comes from the Greek word lithos, meaning stone. That's why we say it is a solid, rocky layer of the earth. Litho itself means stone and we know that sphera meaning the sphere. So this lithosphere that behaves somewhat elastically on time scale if we observe thousands of years or even more than that. And if we see to its composition or its extension, it includes the crust and the upper mantle part of the earth's structure. If you must have seen the earth structure, we will be dealing here in further in our lecture. The crust consists of, or we can say the lithosphere consists of the outer layer of the earth, that is crust, and the upper part of the mantle, which is generally make up of the earth's hard, rigid and outer layer. So it can be said that lithosphere includes the crust, the upper mantle, which make up the earth's hard, rigid outer layer. And when we talk about the pedosphere, it is one of the highest component of the lithosphere. Peds meaning we are dealing here with the soil. So pedosphere is the highest component of the lithosphere that forms soil by chemically reacting with the atmosphere, hydrosphere and overall we can say biosphere. Now you can see here the structure of the earth here, the overall from inside to the outside, that is it is the earth structure which denotes the inner core, the innermost part, that is the inner core, here you can see. Then we have the outer core, then we have the lower mantle, then we have the overall mantle. It can be divided into upper mantle and lower mantle. So this is overall, that is the mantle part, and then we have the crust. So when we talk about the lithosphere, if you see the extent of lithosphere that is given in this rectangle, you can see here that lithosphere consists of crust and the upper part of the mantle. As the mantle here you can see that it extends from this portion to overall this portion, what I am marking here, you can see only this part of the mantle can be included in the lithosphere. So just get it to understand that the lithosphere consists of crust and upper part of the mantle. Talking about the composition of the lithosphere, as we have said that lithosphere consists of the crust may be the continental crust, the crust may be the oceanic crust. So during its composition we have to learn about its composition in continental crust and its composition in oceanic crust too. So if we talk about the composition of the continental crust, the thickness varies from round about 30 to 70 kilometer. It is just like the thickest beneath the mountain ranges, similar like the Himalayas, a major portion is beneath the earth's surface, while its a part or little portion is above the earth's surface. So thickness varies from 30 to 70 kilometer. If we talk about its composition, it is mainly dominated by the granitic rock, which is rich in the felsic minerals. When we talk about the felsic mineral, we also say the upper part of the earth is Sial, means it consists of silica and aluminium, SiAl. Because of its composition, it is known as Sial. So it is mainly high in silicon and aluminium, the granitic rocks. And if we talk about the layer, the upper part is predominantly, it is felsic in nature. When we say felsic in nature, it means it is rich in feldspar and quartz. But the lower part, if we talk about, that transitions to intermediate rocks, that is more mafic in nature. When I say mafic in nature, it again the name depicts the composition that it is made of magnesium and iron, that is mafic in nature. The common minerals found in oceanic crust are generally the quartz, which contributes significantly to its rigidity. When we say it is solid layer, the quartz contributes to its rigidity, and it is also the minerals like feldspar, which is abundant group of rock forming minerals. It is also composed of mica, which is generally found in granitic rocks, amphiboles, which provide dark colors in the rocks, and its density generally varies, or we can say somewhat range up on an average basis 2.7 gram per centimeter cube. And when we talk about the key rocks that are present in the oceanic crust, that is simply we can say the granite and rhyolite. So this is the visualization of the lithosphere. We can again visualize it. If you take, this is the inner core, and then we again have the outer core, which is up to, I can say, that starts from 2900 kilometer. Then we have the mantle. You can see it is divided into two parts, the lower mantle and the upper mantle. You can see here, if we see the cross section of this part, which is consisting a bit of upper mantle, then here we can visualize the lithosphere, which consists of the crust, whether it is continental crust or whether it is oceanic crust. Then we can say the upper part of the mantle. It also includes the upper part of the mantle, beneath which, that is the asthenosphere, somewhat we can say the elastic layer on which these tectonic plates or the rigid masses move. So here you can understand clearly with this diagram how the lithosphere extend from continental crust to oceanic crust to upper part of the mantle. Now the composition of lithosphere in terms of the oceanic crust, because it comprises of both, I have said, that continental crust and oceanic crust. So the composition of oceanic crust, if we sort about, or if we write about its thickness, it generally varies from 5 to 10 kilometer, much thinner as we compare it with the continental crust. And if we talk about its composition, it is mainly composed of basaltic rocks, basaltic composition. Basaltic composition is actually what? Extrusive igneous rocks, the lava which flow outside, we can say, and then crystallizes and form rocks, that is known as basaltic flow or the rock of basaltic origin, which is generally dominated by the mafic rocks. Mafic rocks are a type of igneous rock which is having the composition of magnesium and iron. So basically the composition is of basaltic composition, that is a extrusive igneous rock like the mafic minerals. Lower silica content is found as compared to the continental crust. So almost just 45 to 55% of silica. Basically that's why we can say, because of low content of silica, the density of oceanic crust is high as compared to the density of continental crust. So common minerals which are found here again are, that is plagioclase, feldspar, pyroxene, it is a dark silicate matter. Then we have the olivine, which is mostly found deeper layers of the oceanic crust. And then we have the magnetite and ilmenite, mainly contributing to its magnetic properties. And density is 3 gram per centimeter cube, which is higher than the continental crust due to the mafic composition. I have already explained the mafic composition means it is a extrusive igneous rock which comprise of magnesium and iron. That's why it is known as mafic composition, and that's why the density of oceanic crust is higher than the continental crust. So, key rocks which are found here are basalt, that generally the dark rock, as it is the igneous rock and formed from the lava flows on the ocean floor. That is what we can say mafic rock. And it is also having the rock gabbro, which is coarse grained, somewhat equivalent to the basalt, found at the deeper levels in the oceanic crust. So, the chemical composition of overall the crust we can see in terms of oceanic crust and continental crust. Continental crust generally composed of silicon, aluminium, potassium and sodium, while oceanic crust composed of magnesium, iron and calcium. As you see, it is composed of magnesium and iron. That's why the density of oceanic crust is comparatively more than the continental crust. Now, when we have started discussing about the lithosphere, I have said that the extent, or we can say the extension of the lithosphere is from the crust to the upper mantle. Then now we have discussed about the crust, that is the oceanic crust and the continental crust. Now we are going to discuss about the composition of the upper mantle. So, actually the lithosphere includes the rigid solid upper portion of the mantle, which is beneath just the crust. Already we have seen in the diagram also, and the composition of upper mantle is distinctively more mafic, rich in magnesium and iron. As we go deep down the earth, we will find more of the igneous composition, or we can say lava composition, magma composition. So, it is more mafic in nature. Whenever I say mafic in nature, students try to understand mafic rocks are the igneous rocks, or we can say extrusive igneous rocks. In that case, we have seen in the oceanic crust, the composition of upper mantle is very much mafic in nature, that is rich in magnesium and iron. And if we see to its depth and structure, it extends from the base of the crust, that is 5 to 70 kilometer, or even sometime up to 200 kilometer deep. So, if we see to its extent, something 200 kilometer deep. The upper mantel's mechanical properties allow it to flow slowly over time, although it maintains its solid state, but mechanical properties are such like that it allow it to flow slowly over time, which contributes to the movement of the tectonic plates. If we see the composition of this upper mantle, which is mainly dominated by the mafic and the ultramafic rocks, rich mainly in the magnesium and iron, and the most abundant mineral of the upper mantle is the olivine. Then we have the pyroxene, and then we have the garnet and spinel, which is found mainly in the high pressure regions of the upper mantle. The density increases with depth. We know the least density is of continental crust, then the oceanic crust is having more density than the continental crust. Here the upper mantle will have the higher density as compared to the oceanic crust. So, it ranges from 3.3 to 3.4 gram centimeter cube in the upper mantle. The key rocks are mainly the olivine, pyroxene, etc. Again, you can see here the structure of the upper mantle, overall crust you can see here, which composed of the oceanic crust. The blue part is the oceanic crust. We have the continental continental crust also. Then we have the upper solid that is upper part of the mantle, which is also solid in its state. This is the upper mantle. So this is what we can say, that lithosphere includes the continental crust, the oceanic crust. So continental crust, the oceanic crust and the upper mantle. You can see here, this is the mantle, but only this much portion, upper mantle, is being included in the lithosphere. So just remember and try to understand three things, that is, it consists of crust and upper mantle, and into crust it consists of the oceanic crust as well as the continental crust. Now the elements, these are the all elemental composition of the lithosphere. Already we have discussed, composed of aluminium, iron, sodium, potassium, silicon, magnesium, etc. So when you study the lithosphere, it becomes mandatory to understand about the lithospheric plates. You must have heard the term plate generally in with perspective to tectonic plate. Actually, lithosphere is broken into large, rigid, solid masses, or we can say pieces, which are known as tectonic plates. These tectonic plates floats on semi-fluid material which is known as asthenosphere beneath them. So we are talking about that lithosphere consists of crust and upper part of mantle, which is just floating over a thin layer, semi-fluid layer, that is known as just behave like a plastic, liquid plastic. So these lithospheric plates, or I can say the large rigid masses, which is known as lithospheric plates, that float on this semi-fluid which is known as lithosphere, and this is just beneath them. Actually the term plate was coined by J.T. Wilson, we can say Tuzo Wilson, in 1960. So here comes one question here, if it is asked who coined the term plate, the answer will be, it is coined by J.T. Wilson in 1960. So these plates actually move slowly over time and they interact each other with their boundaries. Their boundaries we are going to discuss in further in our lecture. So actually they interact with one another with their boundaries. The boundaries may be convergent towards each other, may be divergence away from each other, or they may be sliding towards each other, which is very much responsible for various geologic activities, for various tectonic activities such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions and the creation of the mountain ranges. So actually this plate range in size, they may be of few hundred kilometers to the thousands of kilometers. Their thickness also varies, ranging from less than 15 kilometer to up to about 200 kilometers. So just imagine the range, just less than 15 kilometer to up to 200 kilometer. So plates, what is the force that makes these plates to move? The plates actually move due to the convection currents generated in the heated mantle. This is another topic. Just here you remember that plates move due to the convection currents which is generated in the mantle. So this is a pictorial representation. Here you can see the various types of lithospheric plates. Some are major and some are minor with their boundaries. You can see here the boundaries of these plates. You can see somewhat, this is what we can say, this is sliding towards each other, then this is converging towards each other. You can see here somewhere we can see the divergence, this is diverging from each other. This is what different types of plates we can find here, and there are few major plates, actually 7 major plates and many minor plates. Some of the name is given. The major plates, try to remember at least the major plates: the Pacific plate, the North American plate, the Eurasian plate, African plate, Antarctic plate, Indo-Australian plate, sometimes divided into India and Australian plates, but together we call it Indo-Australian plate, and South American plate. These are the major lithospheric plates. They are very big in size as compared to the minor plates, and there are several minor plates. Some of the example you can coin here, as for example Nazca plate, Philippine Sea plate, Arabian plate, Caribbean plate, Cocos plate, then we have the Scotia, John D. Fuca plate, etc. These are the minor plates. So, lithosphere is mainly divided into major plates and the minor plates. When we are talking about this plates, we must also have the understanding about its plates boundaries, because what I have said, they generally these plates interact with each other with their boundaries in different manner. So actually tectonic plates interact at their edges, and the type of interaction defines the geologic activity that is observed at each boundary. When I am talking about the type of interaction, whether the plates or they are moving towards each other or whether they are moving away from each other, this decides the type of boundary. So actually we are having, on the basis of plate boundaries, we are having three types of plate boundaries: divergent plate boundaries, convergent plate boundaries, and transform plate boundaries. Talking about divergent plates boundaries, these are the plates which move apart from each other. For example, if you see here, these are the two plates. So these plates are moving apart from each other, moving apart from each other, moving away from each other, which means it is having the divergent boundary. So when the plate is moving apart, the magma beneath it, that will rise and come upside. So magma rises from below the earth's surface to fill the gap, thus the new crust is formed. When the plate boundaries move apart, the magma from beneath it, that will rise up and flow outward, thus the new crust is formed. So these boundaries are often found, you can give the best example, the mid-Atlantic oceanic ridge, that is, and are associated with seafloor spreading also. I am going to discuss seafloor spreading also. So other example you can give, East African rift is a continental divergent boundary where the African plate is splitting into two smaller parts. So simple thing you have to remember here, in the divergent boundaries, the two plates move apart, move away from each other. So in order to fill the gap, the magma just beneath it, that rises up, and thus the new crust is formed. Coming to the convergent boundary, the name itself is suggesting something is converging. So here we are studying with perspective to the plate boundaries. So plates, when they move towards each other, suppose these are the two plates, so these plates are moving towards each other, it is closing the gap, in that gap is created, that is why magma rises up, here the gap is being closed. So they are moving towards each other, and one plate is often forced below the other, and this process is known as subduction. When two plates moves toward each other, when two plates moves towards each other, one plate is forced to subduct below the other. Now which plate will be subducted, that is to be decided. So it is simply decided on the density. The plate having the higher density, that will subduct below the plate having the lighter density. So plates moving towards each other, and where one plate is forced to subduct below the other, and the process is known as subduction. This is known as the plates having the convergent boundaries. Actually these boundaries are responsible for forming mountains, because we have a theory how these mountains are formed, where the Indo-Australian plate is moving towards the Eurasian plate and subduction of Indian plate is taking place, and during this collision we can say the mountains like Himalayas have been formed. So these types of boundary is also related to the various geologic activities, just like forming mountains, volcanic arcs, example the Andes you can coin, and even the subduction zones are also characterized by powerful earthquakes and the volcanic activity. We are having the full we can say Pacific volcanic ring, if you remember, fire ring, that is. So, it is related with the various geologic activities like formation of mountains, volcanic arcs, powerful earthquakes, volcanic activity, etc. The best example you can quote here, that is the convergence of Indo-Australian plate and the Eurasian plate which formed the Himalayas, that I have already explained. So, next coming to the another type of boundary, that is transform boundary. If we talk about the transform boundary, that simply the plates slide past each other, means plates are sliding. In divergence they are moving apart, in convergence they are moving towards each other, and when we are talking about the transform boundaries, the plates are sliding past each other. If one plate is moving this side, another plate will move this side. So, it means the plates are sliding past each other horizontally, means the plates are sliding. Here the plates are simply sliding, and it is also mainly characterized by the earthquakes, but do not usually involve the volcanic activities, because volcanic activity generally takes place either we can say in divergence and either in we can say in subduction zones. So, example here, the best example you can quote here about the San Andreas fault in California is one of the very good example of transform boundary where North American plate and Pacific plate slide past each other. So, best example you can quote here about the San Andreas. So, here you can see the diagram of different plate boundaries. Blue color denotes the oceanic boundary, green color the land, brown the lithosphere, and the orange is asthenosphere. Why we are here showing the asthenosphere? Because these plates, these rigid masses is moving above the asthenosphere layer. So, in convergent boundary, when we are seeing convergent, here you can see convergent or the divergent boundaries. When we are talking about this one, see continent divergence, means the divergence, two continent boundaries are moving apart. Here you can see divergence, ocean divergence, two oceanic bodies or plates are moving apart. Again, in convergent boundary, we can have the ocean convergence. Here the ocean boundary, both ocean boundaries are converging, and here you can say ocean and continental body is converging here. So, actually when the oceanic and continental convergence takes place, as the oceanic plates, they have the higher density. So, oceanic plates will subduct below the continental plate because continental plate is having the lighter density, and thus you can see continent transform. See, you can see here the transform boundary, not in this direction, in this direction. You can see here the transform boundary. So, this is all about a little bit concept about the plate boundaries. Now, when we study the plate boundaries, we should also have the knowledge about the plate movement, how these plate movements are taking place and what is plate movement. So, plate movement is best explained by the plate tectonic theory, in which it has been explained that how the earth lithosphere, the rigid part of the earth, the rigid outer shell of the earth, which is divided into certain large and small plates, is floating on a semi-fluid which is known as asthenosphere. So, simple, these rigid masses are floating on asthenosphere. These plates are constant in motion. The rate of movement varies from one plate to another, and it is mainly driven by the forces within the earth. The plate movement is driven by the forces within the earth, such as mantle convection, the convection current that is formed in mantle, then it is also driven by the gravity and the earth rotation. Actually, these are the forces which work for the movement of the plates, and it decides the plates movement, whether it will diverge or it will converge or it will slide past each other. So, plate tectonic not only provides explanation for various geologic phenomena like earthquake, mountain formation or volcanic activity, etc., but it also provide knowledge regarding the sea floor spreading also. So, now the key processes which are involved in plate tectonics, in plate movement. I am going to discuss here just few of the major processes which are involved in the plate tectonic. The first one is that is the seafloor spreading. Means the name itself is suggesting we are talking about seafloor, means oceanic crust we are here talking about. How it is spreading? It mainly, if we are talking about the spreading, it means we are talking about the divergent boundaries. So mainly the seafloor spreading will occur at divergent boundaries where two tectonic plates move apart from each other. The two plates here, two tectonic plates will move apart from each other. So mainly remember students, the sea floor spreading will take along divergent boundaries, and when the two plates move apart, what we have studied, the new crust formation will take place. So new crust is created as magma rises below the earth's surface at mid-oceanic ridges, and we have quoted example also about the mid-oceanic Atlantic ridge. So as the magma cools, it forms new ocean crust, pushing the older crust away from the ridge, causing sea floor to expand. So always in divergent boundaries, new crust is formed. So the younger crust will be towards the edge and the older crust will move away from the boundary. You can quote the example of mid-Atlantic ridge where the Eurasian plate and North American plate are moving apart. Now, another key process which is related to the plate tectonics is continental drift. Continental drifts means the gradual movement of continent across the Earth's surface over the geological time. The concept was proposed by Alfred Wegener in 1912, in his theory of continental drift, which points out that the Earth continent were once a part of a single supercontinent known as Pangaea. So all other continents have drifted apart from this supercontinent which was known as Pangaea. Over the millions of years, this supercontinent broke apart. Mainly first is broke into two parts. The two parts is known as Angara land, the northern land, and the southern land is known as the Gondwana land. Angara land is also can be called as Laurentian land. So first it broke into two parts, then further bifurcation took place with the time, and now what we are seeing, the present locations of the different continents is due to the drift or movement of these continents across the Earth's surface. So over million of years, this supercontinent broke apart and the resulting landmass drifted to their present locations. So plate tectonics provided the mechanism of seafloor spreading, mantle convection to explain how continents move. The third key process which is related to the plate tectonic is subduction. As seafloor spreading takes place on divergent boundaries, the subduction will take place in convergent boundary where the two plates moves towards each other. Means where the two plates move towards each other, one plate will be subducted below the other plates due to the density difference. The higher density plate will move below the or beneath the lesser density plate. So it occurs at the convergent boundaries where two plates move towards each other and one plate, usually denser such as oceanic crust, is forced beneath the other into the mantle. This process leads to the formation of ocean deep, trenches, volcanic arcs. So subduction leads to the formation of ocean deeps. We are talking about trenches, volcanic arc, as the subducting plate will melt as it will go deep beneath the earth. So subducting plate melts and magma rises to the surface. Example here you can quote, the Pacific plate is subducting under the North American plate along the Pacific Northwest, forming a cascade range of volcanoes. When the subducting plate, the subducted part of the plate melts, it will rise as magma. Actually, how the interaction of lithosphere with Earth's other sphere is going on. is related, how it is interacting with the other spheres of the Earth's surface. If we see the interaction of lithosphere with the atmosphere, volcanic eruptions release various gases and ash, weathering rocks consumes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, the mountains influence the climate, not only in this way, many other ways also. Here just I have tried to explain how the lithosphere interacts with the other spheres of the Earth. If we talk about the hydrosphere, the erosion shapes landscapes, various tectonic activity forms ocean basins and causes tsunamis, lithosphere stores groundwater. Similarly, if we see how it interacts with the biosphere, the soil formation supports plant life, the lithosphere shapes habitats and provide essential mineral for living organism. And cryosphere, that is related to the glaciers, tectonic uplift forms glaciers, glaciers eroded landscape and sea level changes influence the size of the ice sheet. So, these are the few of the example you can see here how the lithosphere interacts with the atmosphere. So, how it interacts, it supports lithosphere. What are the significance? We can say few of the significance, just take an example of those significance. It supports life, it provides, lithosphere provides soil and ground for plants, various habitats, species, animals and the humans. This lithosphere provides us with n number of resources, minerals, metals, fossil fuels and the groundwater. It also shapes landforms, tectonic activity forms, mountains, valleys, ocean basins, etc. Not only this, it helps to regulate the climate, it participates in the carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, influences the climate of different places. Not only this, triggered seismic activity is responsible for the earthquake and volcanic eruptions and also the foundation for the human activities. Lithosphere is also is regarded as a foundation for the human activities like agriculture, infrastructure and urban development. Where it happens? It happens on the upper surface or surface of the earth, that is the lithosphere. So, these are the few of the significance of lithosphere or importance of the lithosphere. You can give more example on your own. So, that's all for today's lecture. Have a nice day. Thank you.